Hey everyone, and welcome. You ever get that feeling that there's a whole other conversation happening right underneath the words people are actually saying? Well, you're not wrong. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the hidden rules of communication that we all use all the time without even thinking about it. I mean, think about it. We are constantly decoding what people mean, not just what they say. So how do we do it? What's the secret handshake that lets us know what's really being communicated? Okay, let's take a look at this phrase. Interesting idea. 3 simple words. Seems pretty straightforward, right? But what it actually means, well, that completely depends on something else. And that something else is context. Context is a game changer. If you're in a big creative brainstorm and someone says, "Interesting idea," that's awesome. It's an invitation. It means, yes, and tell me more. But if you hear those exact same words from a skeptical boss who's looking over your big new proposal, yeah, that probably means, nope, start over. Same words, totally different message. That gap between them, that's where the real meaning lives.
So how can we actually make sense of all these hidden layers? Well, that's where our topic for today comes in. We're talking about discourse analysis, and you can think of it as the official decoder ring for human communication.
So at its core, discourse analysis, or DA for short, is a study of language in action. It's not about memorizing vocabulary or getting your grammar perfect. Nope, it's about looking at how we piece language together in conversations, in articles, in social media posts, you name it, to build meaning.
Here's another way to think about it. Remember in English class when you had to diagram sentences with all the little lines and labels? That's kind of like traditional linguistics. It's all about the rules and the structure inside the sentence. Discourse analysis steps back and asks bigger questions like, why did they choose those words in that particular situation to get that result? It's all about what language does in the world.
So how does this decoder ring actually work? Well, analysts have a whole toolkit of concepts they use to unpack our communication. Let's open it up and look at a couple of the most important tools. First up, the absolute #1 golden rule: context is king. And we're not just talking about the physical place you're in. Context includes everything: cultural norms, the history between the speakers, their jobs, the power dynamics. Without understanding the context, the real meaning is basically lost. And this leads to one of the coolest ideas in this whole field: speech acts. A philosopher named J.L. Austin came up with this brilliant idea that when we talk, we're not just saying stuff, we're doing stuff. Our words are literally actions. For instance, when you state something you believe is true, that's an assertive act. When you tell someone, "Hey, pass the salt," that's a directive. When you say, "I promise I'll be there," you're performing a commissive act. You're making a commitment. And get this, when an official says, "I now pronounce you husband and wife," that's a declarative act. Their words just changed reality. How powerful is that? Okay, so once you get the basic tools, you can start looking at language through different lenses. Kind of like a photographer swapping out lenses on a camera. Each one gives you a totally different view of what's going on. So the first lens is conversation analysis. This is like the zoom lens. It gets right into the nitty-gritty of how we talk. You know, how we take turns, the meaning of a pregnant pause, or how we correct ourselves mid-sentence. Just think about how a tiny thing like interrupting someone can totally shift the power in a room. Lens #2 is critical discourse analysis, or CDA. Now, this one is more of a wide-angle lens. It zooms out to look at the big picture, the connection between language, power, and even social inequality. So, CDA is all about figuring out how power actually works through the words we use. An analyst might dissect a politician's speeches, for example, to see exactly how they use certain phrases or frames to rally support or to create an us versus them kind of feeling. All right. Our third lens is narrative analysis. And this one is all about something we all do. We tell stories. This lens looks at how we tell those stories about our lives, our jobs, our experiences, to build our identities and make sense of the world. Next up, lens 4 is thematic analysis.
This is a super useful tool for finding patterns across a huge amount of text. So researchers might use it to analyze hundreds of interviews to pull out the key themes and ideas that keep popping up over and over again. And finally, our fifth lens is built for the world we live in right now: multimodal discourse analysis. This is just a fancy way of saying that we don't just communicate with words anymore, right? This lens analyzes how words, images, sounds, and even the layout of a web page all work together to create one big message. Think of an Instagram ad or a viral meme. Okay, so you might be thinking, this is all pretty interesting, but so what? Why does this actually matter? Well, trust me, this is way more than just an academic thing. It's a real-world skill. I mean, discourse analysis is used everywhere. It's how media critics spot hidden bias, how political scientists track propaganda, how doctors learn to communicate better with their patients, and how marketers figure out what makes us want to buy something. The list just goes on and on. But if there's one single thing to take away from all this, it's this: understanding how discourse works gives you a kind of critical awareness. It's like seeing the matrix. You start to see how language is being used every single day, not just to inform you, but to persuade you. And yeah, sometimes even to manipulate you. It's about seeing beyond the surface. So I'm going to leave you with this question. You now have the decoder ring. You can see the code running underneath our everyday language. The only question left is, what are you going to read differently?